Welcome to our monthly happy hour. We have an exciting Inspire Me here for you today. We're going to be talking to Twitchy Woman herself, which whenever I say that name or visit your blog, Sharon, I start hearing the song in my head and I think of that Seinfeld episode, so it puts me in a great mood.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
We're big on nicknames in our house, and there's a big argument as to who came up with it. I say it was my idea. My husband says it was his.
That's the thing about, my husband does that too. He tries to claim credit for things, but everyone, so while you might know her as Twitchy Woman from her blog, twitchywoman.com, our Inspire Me featured guest here today is Sharon Krischer. Am I pronouncing that right, Sharon?
Yeah, Krischer,
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. And I think I recognize a lot of faces and names, but I just wanted to go over some of the logistics, the housekeeping items for today's program. So we're going to start. I'm going to ask Sharon our usual, our Inspire Me questions, just a little bit more about her journey and how life has maybe taken a left or a right turn. We'll find out since getting a diagnosis. And then we're going to open it up for a discussion, whether it's writing or blogging, or I hear Sharon's a good tennis player too.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Whatever it is, this is just our chance. We're not, formal, no PowerPoints here. This is just our chance to, meet in a little corner of the internet. We all share one thing in common and just a chance to hang out and chat and hopefully be inspired. No pressure, Sharon.
Okay. I'm starting to see a few familiar names up there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So in the beginning, everyone will be muted, and then when we get to the discussion part, we'll be able to ask questions and interact a little bit more. So I think now it looks like we are 3 minutes past the start time, so everyone has joined us. So hi everyone, I'm Andrea Merriam from PMD Alliance, and you are here for Inspire Me. If you're here for that, that online proctology exam, you're in the wrong room. Turn around, head back out. We're here talking to Sharon Krischer, the original Twitchy Woman, writer, blogger, advocate, and can't wait to learn a little bit more about you, Sharon. So I'm going to start with, I already answered the first question for you. So the first question's, what's your name? So we'll skip right to the good stuff. So
okay.
How old were you when you were diagnosed?
57.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about what your life was like, what it looked like before that diagnosis at age 57.
Okay. Well, I was very, very active doing volunteer stuff, traveling, just busy. And I had actually, the summer before, I had been the local chair of a convention for a national organization. The convention was in LA, and just really, really busy. But I had started noticing some things. And the day after the convention, I went out to walk my dogs, and one of them chased after a cat that came out across the street, pulled me down and broke my leg. That was my left leg. And a couple of weeks later, my right foot started twitching. And it was like, okay, what's going on? And I just ignored it. And finally went to my internist, and he gave me Xanax, and I'm sure everybody has had similar stories. They don't, they try this, they try that, and eventually they send you to a neurologist. The problem was I was also diagnosed with breast cancer at the same time, the same week, literally, as I saw my first neurologist. And he put me on medication and kept increasing it and made me sick. And I finally said, I'm not going back to him. I went to a movement disorder specialist, which changed my life. But I was really, really busy prior to my dual diagnosis and tried to keep up. Fortunately, the breast cancer was caught very early. I had radiation, and that was lumpectomy radiation. Radiation knocked me out for about 6 months. And then I was ready to come back and do whatever I could. But that's when the Parkinson's, the twitch, the tremors started acting up more and more and more. And I was finally diagnosed. And when you get that diagnosis, it was like a relief, and you're scared all at the same time. You don't know how to respond. This was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, there wasn't a PMD Alliance. There weren't a lot of resources out there, which is what we have today, which is wonderful. I think there were actually too many resources now. How do you choose where to go? But anyway, but my life changed. The focus of my life changed. I focused more inward rather than outward, because I had to take care of myself. Nobody else was going to.
And man, talk about when it rains, it pours. I mean,
Yeah.
for an active, healthy person to be hit with a double whammy like that. Did I understand when you said you dealt with did you mentally process the breast cancer diagnosis first and then you moved on to the Parkinson's, or were you just
Pretty much.
everything? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. The breast cancer was more immediate. That had to be taken care of. The treatment was immediate, and that occupied the first 8 weeks after I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And by then I was so tired, I didn't care. I was so wiped out from the radiation. Best sleep I ever had in my life. Not so anymore. I'm like everybody else with Parkinson's, no sleep. But at that point I slept. And when I finally came out of that fog, that's when I decided I had to do something about the Parkinson's.
Okay. And I know from reading your blog that exercise and staying active has been a key part of your new life and your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your philosophy on that?
Well, I've always been exercising my entire life, and played tennis since I don't know when, and joined a gym when my kids were babies, and always went to the gym. Worked out with a personal trainer, and that never stopped. In fact, what happened was after I saw the movement disorder specialist, and she said, "I want you to exercise more," I exercised more than I had been. I had been going 2 or 3 times a week to the gym. Then it became an almost everyday thing. Then I started, when you start searching, you start finding things. And rock steady boxing was on my radar. There was dancing for Parkinson's. There were all these things that I didn't know about when I was first diagnosed. It took several years to find them. I don't know that they were even available 10 years ago. And I'm sure many of you have found the same thing, that there's just so many more resources available now. But my routine now, I go to yoga classes 2 to 3 times a week. Yoga is essential for balance. Balance, falling, it helps with teach you not to fall, stretches you out. It's really wonderful. And I go to boxing twice a week. And when I have time, I get on a spin bike the other days when I'm not too wiped out. So at least 5 or 6 days a week.
I like what you said. Your doctor said exercise more, and you actually did it, and all in wholeheartedly, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, I had been, so it wasn't hard to add more into my routine. But I found that I was spending more time taking care of me, which meant exercising every single day instead of every other day, than I had been before.
And this is a big question, but what inspires you? What pushes you to keep up that exercise regimen, or, what inspires you on the creative side? And maybe this is a good chance to start to tell us about your writing.
Okay. I was never a writer. I hated writing. I thought about law school, and I hated the fact that you had to write things out and go to a typewriter, and it just was not for me. Computers changed my life. But I started writing because people were seeking me out. I became a researcher because of whatever I wanted to know. The internet was there, and I was able to do the research. It was very easy for me. And people started seeking me out, asking me, could I speak to this person? Could I speak to that one? Usually the newly diagnosed. And then I thought one day, why don't I just start writing something? I'll just send an email out to all these people and see what happens. And that became the blog. And I never expected it to still be going. I think it's 4 years now, 3.5, 4 years, something like that. It's still going, and my readership is increasing greatly, which is wonderful. And the people out there inspire me because I see what everybody else is doing. There are so many people living well with Parkinson's today, and we can each be an inspiration for each other. I really think that I'm a big believer in peer-to-peer counseling, communication. I love meeting with other people with Parkinson's, and we know how we feel. We know how each other feels. We have something in common. And to see what this person, one person I know who's an attorney, was working part-time, she's now working 3 different jobs because she was driven to do so. And that inspires me. Another one found her artwork. Another one found a dance. You know, everybody seems to find something that works for them. And the funny thing is, I was a calligrapher before. I can't do it anymore because of my tremor. So I have not done any artwork, and I really want to get back into doing artwork. That was my thing, not writing. But the writing has taken over the creative part of my brain. I don't know that I can draw anything anymore. So
Interesting. And when you talk about the peer-to-peer connections, do you start with the Parkinson's that draw, that you and a stranger or someone you're talking to or writing with the first time, and then expand upon that? Or is that just, a sidebar and not even the main thing that you talk about with people?
Usually when I meet with somebody, I'll end up having coffee with somebody or talking to them on the phone. It's because they had gotten to me because of the Parkinson's. So, we talk about when they were diagnosed, how long it took to get diagnosed, their symptoms, et cetera, et cetera. I am not a doctor. I'm not a medical I'm not a medical practitioner. So I can't give them medical advice, but I can tell them what works for me, that exercise works for me, that, what might be available for them. I've been actually talking to some people in the community. We're trying to, some of the women that I've gotten to know want to form a mentor program. They want to be able to formally meet with people, but they want to have some parameters.
Mm-hmm.
What can we talk about? We can't talk about, I can't say to you, you have to take Cinemet. That's not my job. But I can say to you, exercise works for me. Find some kind of exercise that works for you. And it gets you out of the house. The number one reason for decline in Parkinson's, according to Laurie Mishley, who was at the World Parkinson's Congress, was isolation, loneliness. And many people become isolated. They're afraid to go out of the house. They don't see other people, and then they go downhill much faster. So go out, go to an exercise class, go to a Dance for Parkinson's class. You can sit in the chair the whole time. You don't have to stand up. You can go to a music class. There's all kinds of music classes all over. And that's where you find people who are like-minded people. They have something in common with you. And some of my best friends I've gotten to know through my boxing class, through my yoga classes, because we have a lot in common. We've got a bond.
Yeah. When you were first diagnosed, did you have a mentor, or did you have?
No, but I learned a couple months after my diagnosis that someone I knew from my synagogue also had Parkinson's. He was diagnosed at the same time. So we became a support group of 2.
You were both going through the
newly diagnosed together. And we were both going to movement disorder specialists at UCLA. So we had a lot to talk about. So we became our own private little support group.
Sometimes all it takes is one person.
That's right. You need having one person who you can say, you know what, I'm having this issue today. Have you ever had that problem? It helps. It helps a lot.
Even when maybe they say no?
But they understand. Everybody's different. In fact, I was reading today, somebody was complaining about the fact that we use the word snowflake too much for Parkinson's, that each person is like a snowflake. We're all different. And yeah, snowflake makes me think of somebody who's ditzy, not different.
Yeah.
But we are all individuals. We are all totally different. So yes, we are like a snowflake in that way, but we have a lot of commonalities. You know, whether it's a tremor, he's got dyskinesia. I don't have dyskinesia. We have different symptoms altogether, but the internal stuff, you know how you're feeling. If you say to somebody who doesn't have Parkinson's, you say, I'm having internal tremors. Do they have a clue what you're talking about? No.
Yeah. Did you try to educate any of your friends, you know, your old friends or, you know, friends from earlier in life? I talk with a lot of people about this, how, you know, sometimes some people cut off contact almost altogether with their
Yeah.
old social circle. I mean, how did
No.
that, you seem like a very social person. Like, how did you navigate that with your circle of
I
friends?
just kept doing what I had been doing. I have 3 women I've been playing tennis with for, well, 2 of them I've been playing tennis with for 25 years or more. And then the third one has been with us about 15 years. And we still play tennis, and my game has gone downhill. It's just terrible these days. And I tried to quit, and they said to me, no, you can't quit. And I mentioned it to a doctor, and he said, keep those friends. So I did. And that's the thing. You don't want to lose your friends. You don't want to become isolated. And, you know, if they ask questions, I answer. It's not like I'm going out and saying, okay, here's what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
some of them read my blog, some don't. It's okay.
Yeah. And to go back to what you were saying before about, you know, the whole concept of snowflakes and how every, you know, person's symptoms and, you know, how they experience the disease is different. We're all different as humans, you know, whether or not it's Parkinson's or whether it's just our personalities. So I love that instead of having to put a stamp and a word on it, I mean, that's just what being human is about.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like with your friend that where you were diagnosed at a similar time, even if you're not going through the exact same thing, it just seems like maybe it was a nice, you were heard. Someone was, you know, at a very deep level listening to what you were talking about. And while we can't recommend to everyone, you know, or do a research study that, you know, clinicians believe that finding someone who's diagnosed, you know, helps, I think finding a connection, whether it's a family member or someone in boxing class or tennis or whatnot, is to have that close connection. And then what do you think about having you know, acquaintances and knowing people? Do you go to a support group or do you do it through your exercise groups?
My exercise group, my boxing class is a support group. One of the things I was privileged to do was I attended almost 4 years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, the Parkinson's disease, what was then the Parkinson's Disease Foundation, had a Women's and Parkinson's Initiative seminar. And you had to apply. There were 25 women who attended. I was lucky to get one of them. I hounded them, I think, until they let me in. But I had already started writing my blog. And we spent 3 days in New Jersey, you know, in a hotel, just having a great time getting to know each other and learning all about Parkinson's. And we were asked to do something when we got home, you know, to pay it forward. So what I ended up doing was I pulled together some women who were reading my blog who lived in Los Angeles. And I said, let's get together and see if we can form some kind of a group. We got together. The first meeting we had, 2 women showed up at my house. The third woman was coming. She called me the night before. She was afraid to come. She had never met anyone else with Parkinson's before. She didn't know what to expect. So I said, okay, let's meet for coffee, which we did afterwards. And then she started coming to everything. So that first meeting with 2 women, the next time we met in a restaurant, we had 15 with the speaker. And everybody said, you know what? We don't want to have a gripe group. We don't want to complain. We don't want to talk about how we feel. We want to just have fun together. So we became what we call a non-support support group. And we've had boxing sessions, we've had dancing with Parkinson's, we've had yoga, we've had a sex therapist speak with speech therapists. We've had all different kinds of activities. We had one session where at somebody's husband's art gallery where we were making cards and playing on makeshift drums and watching videos of somebody's dance project that she was doing, just doing all different kinds of things. And we've been meeting for 3 years. And they come from all over Los Angeles County because they like to get together with the other women just to be together.
Do you think that sounds like fun? How do I get on that list? But do you think that women experience Parkinson's differently? I mean, I'm sure you talk about that with your group or at that symposium that the foundation gave. What are some of the commonalities that you hear that are different for women than men?
Well, especially younger women, it takes them much longer to get diagnosed. They're told it's in their head, that it's hormones, it's this thing, it's that thing. I don't know how many of you out there have gone through that. I was lucky. I was postmenopausal. I had a very clear tremor, and it was obvious what was going on. But if you don't have if you're not typical tremor, tremor dominant, it may take a long time to get diagnosed. And a lot of women have found that their doctors were dismissive of them, that they were making it up. It was all in their head. Well, yes, it was in their head, but in a different way. Literally. And so that's one of the things. And so where it may take, I'm just thinking young onset people, it may take a man, let's say 6 months to a year to get diagnosed. It took the women on average 3 to 4 years. That's 3 to 4 years of lost time.
Absolutely.
And even with older women, and the problem with women my age is, and even, well, a lot of women, we're too busy taking care of other people. And, especially if you have school-age kids, kids living at home, you've got to take care of them. You can't take care of yourself. Who's going to take care of you? Or if you're older and you have a husband who's ill and you have to take care of him who is taking care of you. And those are the kinds of things that we go through. It's unfortunate.
It is.
But it is true.
And those are the tough questions. Have you guys figured that out? Because when you do, you let me know.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's never enough time or enough energy. I mean, how do you, when that question comes up, how do you and the group, what do you say when someone's, just having any of those realities? Either, I have to get my kids to pass their exams, or, my husband is older than me and he's dealing with cancer. I mean, have you been to enough groups where, anything has come to light? And
no, it's tough. Actually, a lot of these things came out of a study that I was involved in with the Parkinson's Foundation. Again, they did their Women in PD Talk study last year, and they needed to have a person with Parkinson's as one of the lead people, and they called me and invited me to do it. So I was happy to do. And we had meetings around the country, 10 meetings around the country, where we talked to the women, we talked to their caregivers, we talked to doctors, physical therapists, and came up with an agenda of what women with Parkinson's need that may be different than men. And there's a whole report that came out. There's a whole research agenda. But a lot of the things that came out were that, one, we're traditionally in the role of caregiver. It's changing over, I think with the younger generations, but my generation, we're traditionally caregivers. It's hard to go from being a caregiver to a care receiver, especially, and I'm lucky I don't need that much care, but a lot of people do. And how do you give up that independence?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
That's a tough question. Whether it's in your, and I love how you called it your non-support group, your social circle, boxing boxing group,
Yeah,
you know,
there's
you're
too many things. Yeah.
so many things. All of what I hear is that you find a de facto network of support in all of your circles.
Yes.
And I bet you provide that as well. How, in all of those, what's the best, or maybe some key, words of advice that has come out of all of those? Resonate, maybe something recent.
Find people that you can talk to about Parkinson's, that you're comfortable with. You need to have friends who are Parkinson's friends. You need to have friends who are not Parkinson's friends. And exercise, and advocate for yourself. That's the other thing I don't think we talked about. And I know that you had Maria on last month, and she's big on advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to go to the doctor and say, this is what I'm experiencing. Mm-hmm. You know, they've heard it all. Whatever you're saying isn't new. They've heard it all from somebody. You're not going to solve it by yourself. So if you need to change your medication, if you need to change something in your life, don't be afraid to ask. Because unless you have somebody who's going to go to every appointment with you and take care of that for you, you have to take care of it.
Absolutely. Yes, she spoke at length about that. And that was such a great perspective to hear someone who had been on the other side of the doctor-physician or the physician-patient equation. And so I loved you said, you gave us some good advice about socialization and friends and communicating with your doctor. And a lot of, it's coming down, we're talking about communicating a lot, which you're a writer now. You're a writer, you're an author, you're a blogger. So let's talk a little bit about your writing in the blog. Like, how do you get ideas for articles? What does that creative process look like?
Oh God, sometimes it comes at 2 a.m. when I'm not sleeping. It may come out of something. I get a lot of emails like from Parkinson's News, and I don't know. I get a lot of different. I don't know what you call them, but they post a lot of articles. So these websites, and so I look and see what's out there. Something will spark something in my head, and okay, maybe I'll write about that. And then sometimes I start something, and it's sitting on my computer 3 years later, and then something will happen that it just all came together, and that happened last week. There was an article about Marie Kondo and making your house too clean. And I thought, okay, I had started writing this. Let's finish it up. And it worked. And I was able to, because we all start doing something, we get distracted, we get bored by it, and we leave it, and then there's piles of stuff everywhere. So it's worse than it was when we started.
Absolutely.
I don't know how many of you can resonate with that. We get so, it's easy to become distracted. And whether you have Parkinson's or you don't have Parkinson's, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's a noisy world these days.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. And when you mentioned kind of how you started the blog, and it came out of, being asked for advice or asked to talk to newly diagnosed people, was there any fear involved, to putting pen to paper, or to putting, whatever the digital equivalent of that is, to put your voice out there?
Yeah, it was. It really was, and I had been, prior to that point, I wasn't telling people, I wasn't one of these people who said, oh, I have Parkinson's, hi. I was hiding it, doing the hand-holding thing, as my friend said. We did whatever we could to hide it. And it was getting harder and harder, but I still wasn't public with it. And it was funny because the first blog post went out to maybe 20 people I knew. And as it started, and I was just maintaining this list. And for some reason, I don't remember what happened. I posted it on my Facebook page, and I had started a second Facebook page for the blog, and I forgot and posted it on the regular one, and the sky didn't fall in.
So that was maybe an unexpected coming out announcement.
Right. And that, it was a few months after I started the blog. And at that point I thought, maybe I should do this more through, I started doing it through WordPress, and I signed on to MailChimp, which manages my mail list, because we all forget to BCC everybody. So then you see all these names. There's all these mistakes you make when you first start blogging, and you have to figure out how to do it so that you don't make those mistakes and get it sent to the wrong people, or the wrong way. So there were there were always these things that happened. But about 6 months after I started writing the blog, I wrote probably what was the most read blog post I've written. And that was about breast cancer versus Parkinson's. So I took my experience with both and wrote, it was sort of flippant. I try not to be, a lot of times I'm serious, sometimes I'm not serious. I try to mix it. And this one was, Breast Cancer Awareness Month is in October, and everybody's selling things in the stores, and everything is pink, and there's all this. Parkinson's awareness comes around, and nobody knows that it exists.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of comparing the two, and it's still being read today. People are still hitting it. So
yeah, do you ever look at your stats and your numbers and your readership?
Oh, yeah, of course. Doesn't everybody?
They do, even down to the Facebook post. How many smiley faces did you get? Well, do you know how big your audience is right now?
I have probably about 2,000 subscribers through Twitter and Facebook, and through the WordPress. But I also posted on 5 or 6 different Parkinson's Facebook groups that are pretty large. Mm-hmm. So I get a lot of readers that way.
Absolutely. I bet your impact is far and wide.
I don't, Twitchy Woman has become this other entity.
Are you ever spotted in real, when someone meets you at World Parkinson Congress or whatnot, and connects the dots? Is there any,
Yes. Oh yeah, I read your blog. Yes, it happened. People sought me out. They look for me. But I did the same thing. I was looking for people one person who's one of the other bloggers, we ran into each other, and she said, "Oh, it's so nice to see somebody who's not just a floating head on the computer."
Yes, I know
you get to see who they are and have that connection, which is nice.
And it's interesting because you know them on kind of a deep level without ever having met someone in person. So
right. Yeah. And the other thing that happens is I'll be writing something and somebody else will publish almost the exact same thing the same day. So we end up on the same wavelength for whatever it was out there got to both of us at the same time.
Interesting.
Inspired us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. And how, when it comes to, I want to open it up to questions from the audience and hear if there's any. We talked about a lot. We talked about, socialization and friends and writing and creativity and exercise. Also, the female perspective of living with Parkinson's. So line your questions up, everyone, for those topics, or anything that you want to talk about other than, Cinemet dosages, right, Sharon?
I'm not talking about Cinemet dosages, no medicines.
But when it comes to inspiration, creativity, and living with a chronic disease like Parkinson's, what do you see the relation between those things as? I know, how about in your life and your experience? How have those things intersected for you?
Oh, gee. Well, having a chronic illness means it's never going away. It's always going to be there. It's the elephant in the room. It's always going to be there by your side. It's your new best friend. But you learn to live with it. You have to, or it beats the alternative. What can I say? As far as creativity, there have been a lot of. It's interesting if you read different blogs, you'll see that a lot of people have started painting, they've started singing, they've started doing all kinds of creative things that they never did before. They don't know if it's the medication, they don't know if it's the Parkinson's. Right now, from what I can understand, they don't seem to know why the creativity does increase for a lot of people. And people who never picked up a paintbrush are doing beautiful paintings. Pretty amazing. Yeah.
And you were a self-proclaimed non-writer, and now, you're out there. Your written word is out there, and, your posts are touching people. And like you said, even the old ones will continue to do so. Yeah. So what has being able to express yourself with your writing, with the blog, how has that made a difference in your life?
Every week I have to come up with something.
Pressure, but purpose.
Yeah, pressure with a purpose. So it's my new job. I have to, and I used to wonder, how did a columnist in a newspaper come up with something every week? I found out. You just look around you, and there's always something.
So it's made you maybe a better observer?
Probably. Yeah. Sometimes I'll just post a question on Facebook and see how people respond, and I'll go from there. You never know where it's going to come from.
I love it. You never know where inspiration will strike. Got to be open to it, and then be brave enough, courageous enough to put yourself out there, whether it's, paintbrush to canvas or, fingers to keyboard.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting us really, pick your brain, and you're a brave person. You put your written word out there, but sometimes, this type format's different. So thank you for doing that. And let's see, I'm going to take a look at who's on to ask some of our questions. And Rebecca, if you could help me keep track. So folks, you are able to unmute yourself and ask a question. You can type it in the chat bar, or if you need help unmuting yourself, just kind of, make a little hand motion, and either myself or my co-host Rebecca here will go ahead and help you ask that question. So let's see who we have. Who wants to go first?
Sure, I will.
Go ahead, please.
Let's have the elder go first.
Patricia.
You look young to me.
Thank you for that. I'm Patricia, and I'm 81. And I have a daughter who works in your area. And I never dreamed that I'd be in the position of seeking assistance myself. I thought I was past the stage where I had to be concerned about a new disease. But I'm finding I've only been diagnosed for a couple of weeks, but I'm finding it's like everybody has a story. My friend has it. Somebody I ran into said, I have a friend that goes to a dance group, she said. And it's interesting. I didn't know many people, but I'm fast getting to know some. And I had just committed at 81 I was going to begin to double my exercise, and I'm going to do all these things. And then I got the diagnosis, and I thought, well, that lasted a long time. But now, as I listen to you, I may have this problem, but I get around. And one other thing I did think of. I hope it hasn't gone anywhere, but people might say I have a ferocious sense of humor, and the importance of. I often said I'll be done with this life when I can't laugh anymore or make. And so I see a lightness in your presentation and who you are as a person, for sure.
Oh, thank you.
But I value humor. I'll have to find humor even in this. So
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote one. The first year I wrote like Thanksgiving, the top 10 things to be thankful for, and it was all tongue in cheek. And somebody wrote back, "How could you write that? There's nothing good about this disease." And I'm like, "Oh, come on." Anyway,
You gotta have,
you have to find the humor in it.
yep, when it's dark, what else can you do but laugh, right?
Yeah. So keep it up. You're doing great.
Thank you for sharing, Patricia. And I see, Perry, you're raising your hand. Go ahead, Perry.
I like what Sharon said about being able to all of a sudden do something that you had never done before, which also happened to me. And sometimes I get this idea that we've been starved from dopamine for so many decades because it takes so long before the symptoms showed up, that all of a sudden you get reintroduced into your system, back into your brain, and these little sparks start flying, and all of a sudden you got a new creative bent. And that kind of happened to me. I'm doing stuff that I never thought I could, I never did before, that I thought I could do even, and I'm doing it now. So
Like what?
with rockscaping and using like the earth as my canvas, and just being creative with stuff like that. I'd never even thought of stuff before, and then all of a sudden these ideas, pictures come into my mind, and I say, I want to make that look like this picture.
Wow.
And I surprise myself sometimes.
That's great. Go for it.
I like your hypothesis too.
It
The
makes
afterbeat.
sense. I guess.
It does.
Yeah. And I like your metaphor that just sparks start flying.
Yep.
Very good. We had a message come through the chat. Shabir was asking, when you say exercise works for me, how so? Can you elaborate?
Okay. There have been a lot of studies on exercise. Exercise does a lot for you. It keeps you moving, keeps your joints moving. Yoga relaxes you. It helps calm you. There have been bicycle studies that if you do steady RPMs, if you're pedaling at 80 what is it, Joel? RPMs. Revolutions per minute. 80 to 90 at a steady rate for 20 minutes or more, that it's beneficial. There's been a lot of studies. A man named Jay Alberts at the Cleveland Clinics started that. And they're finding that people who exercise tend to do better cognitively. They tend to do better physically. It's good for them all over. So if you don't walk, you just get out and you can walk half a block, and next week walk 2 blocks, and the following week add another. Just keep adding to it. Add to your exercise. Just keep doing a little bit more than you did yesterday, and you'll get there. And you'll find that it really helps. I don't know how many of you know who Jimmy Choi is. He's the person with Parkinson's who is on American Ninja Warrior. And Jimmy said, he did nothing for the first 7 years and gained 50 pounds and sat around and did nothing until he fell down the stairs with his daughter. And his brother was a marathon runner, and he's got him out. He said, well, maybe I'll just walk. And now the guy's doing unbelievable things. So, you can go from being a total couch potato to being an athlete. It's going to take time. Of course, we are all impatient because we have Parkinson's. We expect it to happen overnight, but it doesn't. But start out slowly and just keep adding to your routine. And if you don't like what you're doing, find a different exercise. Find something you do like.
Very good. Shabir, you'll have to let me know if that answers your question or if you have a follow-up question. And I saw some more hands raised. Yuma Bev, were you raising your hand? There's another fellow blogger we have on there, right?
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Bev. Hi, Yuma. How are you?
No, I was just saying thumbs up to Jimmy Choi, and he would be an excellent person to come on and do an
Oh
inspiring.
my God, yes, he would be
Him
fabulous.
and Bill Bucklew.
Mm-hmm.
Bill walked the whole way across the United States.
Yeah.
And he actually came to Yuma.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you wave at him as he went by, or you
I
just heard
walked-
about it after?
No, I walked with him in
Oh,
Yuma.
cool.
And, got him on the local TV station. They did a big story about him in the paper. And then when he got to San Diego, we drove over there and walked the last mile with him over there too.
There's a lot of amazing people out there doing incredible things.
There's no excuse to be sitting on your butt doing nothing.
No.
It's 111 degrees here today, and I was out walking this morning at 7 a.m. So.
Good for you.
Did you?
Yeah, it's a little warmer there than here.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm picturing you walking by like tumbleweeds and skulls of bulls and that that classic Yuma desert, like all those westerns.
Yeah.
Only the people have those as their yard decorations. No, I don't walk out in the desert. I don't like to. I prefer to let the rattlesnakes have the desert to themselves, especially at this time of year.
Oh yeah.
And do you two know each other? Is it a small world?
No, we know each other.
We know each other from blogging, and we finally got to meet in person last year in Los Angeles at a little miniature bloggers conference, which was actually put on by one of the pharmaceutical companies. So.
Oh, cool. I was wondering if there was like a secret Parkinson's blogger,
There actually is. I started it, and we have about 25 bloggers on our group. We need some more. We need to recruit some more. There's so many people out there writing now. It's amazing. Some of them are really great. There's a few that I could live without, and I haven't asked them to join us. With any topic, there's going to be good and bad. You have to be careful what you read. There's some people out there trying to sell you stuff that you don't want to buy. You don't want to go there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to get that list from you. We have a section on our website where we, just share bloggers, and we kind of went with, Google's rankings, but maybe you have some hidden talent or some people just starting out that we'll have to get that from you.
There are so many different, Bev, what are there, like 4 or 5 or 6 best Parkinson's blog things out there? There's Healthline, there's Stanford, and half the time they don't even tell us when they put us on their list. We find out because of the stats that we get from WordPress or whatever. It says who referred you, and you go, it says Stanford best blogs, and we're like, huh? And I looked it up, and there I was.
Yeah.
So you have, they don't even tell us. But we end up on these top 10 lists or top 20 lists, and we don't even know we're there.
Modern days. If it was 50 years ago, or if you were Emily Dickinson, right? You would just be pen to paper with for posterity in your journal, and now it's different.
10 years ago, when my doctor said go on the internet, I found one blogger. And I don't know how many. One person I know listed bloggers. They had 50 of them, and I know there's more than 50 out there because when you look at the top blog list, there's more than 50 people on them.
Yeah.
So everybody who wants to is writing a blog now.
And actually, when I started, I didn't even know what a blog was. I used to tell funny stories in a Parkinson's chat room, and a lady from Australia who had a blog. Mostly about her journey through DBS. She said, well, you should write a blog and put your funny stories in there. And I'm like, what's a blog? I didn't even have a clue. Oh. So, but then for the first 5 or 6 years, I made a point of not reading anyone else's blogs because I didn't want to end up stealing their work without realizing it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So.
Anyone else out there? I mean, there's blogging where it's, you know, out to the world, but anyone journal or maybe write letters to their family or their kids kind of about their experience or what they're going through and find that helpful or, you know, cathartic or an outlet?
Nobody?
Perry tells his story by lifting boulders into pieces of art, huh?
Yeah.
You know, for a lot of us with Parkinson's, we can't even read our own handwriting anymore.
No.
Unless you're going to do stuff online, you know, or I have journals dating back to when I was 16, which is a long time ago. But for the last 15 years, I've had to do it on a computer of some sort.
Mhm.
Okay. So you're different from Sharon. She was saying how she was never a writer. So you kind of turned that diary journaling, you know, into.
Yeah, but my journaling was more like, okay, we went to Olive Garden for lunch today. We took a nap and watched, we had a big thunderstorm. That was my journal, nothing about Parkinson's.
When I started with my rock work, I remember just building tree wells on a property I was on. And I built a really nice looking tree well, and I felt sorry for the tree next to it. And that's how it all started. And it ended up with a prayer circle that turned into a maze that was a half mile long.
Oh my God.
Building a rock park. And I still don't believe I did it when I look back on it. But you look at it on Google Earth, and I did it all with a stick, just drawing a stick in the dirt, and then go finding rocks to make the maze. It was something I'd never done before, so it was kind of cool.
So where can we find this thing on Google Earth, Perry?
You can find it at 5540 West Dale Lane in Surprise. If you just put in that address.
West, what street?
Dale Lane, D-A-L-E.
Okay.
5540 Dale Lane.
15540, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
540.
remember that.
Okay.
I have a friend who
That's
lives
the exact address, but it's one of the houses around it. But you'll be able to see the maze. And from the beginning to the middle and back is a half mile.
Wow. Are you in one of the communities there, or are you just have a big property?
This was on a big property with some folks I stayed with a few years back.
Yeah, otherwise that would be a lot of HOA notices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it turned into quite a project. But it was something.
Kind of, and just how I asked Sharon, how maybe, you know, that first step, you know, how did you overcome that doubt in your head that I think is just part of being human, you know, to maybe second guess yourself and say, what am I doing? Or, you know, what.
I thought with me anyway, is that I never looked at it from a day-to-day perspective, because if you do that, you're going to lose. I've been doing exercise and this kind of stuff since I was diagnosed in 2010, after about a year of sulking for a little while. But you look back on what you did the month before, and then the little things start to add up. It's not an overnight thing, and you got to add on, and you got to keep going. But pretty soon it all piles up, and boom, you started a monster. So,
Like that, like most things. One step at a time, take it one step at a time, right?
Yep.
And I think, Patricia, were you raising your hand again, Patricia? Let's see. You have yourself muted right now. I could hit unmute, but then it'll be that thing where when I hit unmute, you hit unmute, and then I mute you and you unmute yourself. So, okay, so I'm gonna hit oh, there you go. Go for it, Patricia. And then after that, we'll talk to Alan, and then I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Hello.
Hi again, Patricia. Did you have another question or something you wanted to share?
Well, I used to write a lot of topics, mostly around living these human lives that we have. And I stopped writing. And now I want to tell you, I'm thinking about it again. Yes, I'm inspired here. So, okay.
Okay. Then, okay, we accomplished our goal, Sharon, right?
Yeah.
I love it, Patricia. And I'm so glad and can't wait to see what you bring into creation. And I think William was raising your hand. William, go ahead.
Yes, what city Perry's in? What town?
What town are you in, Perry, was the question.
Oh, me? I'm in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. I think William was asking about Perry and his rock garden.
Perry and his rock garden. Oh.
That's in Surprise, Arizona. But I'm in Sun City now, so I don't live out there anymore. But that's where I did it.
Very good.
City Grand.
Oh, you know the.
I know the area.
Yes.
They keep trying to get us to move there.
Ooh.
Too hot for me.
Out in the boonies. Yeah.
How do you deal with the heat?
I've been here since 1953. I don't do cold, so I deal with the heat.
Okay.
Adapted.
Stay inside.
Yeah.
Stay inside. I like it. And then Alan, I think you had a question. I've unmuted you, Alan, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna get him to, he goes to the grocery store, we get a grocery store Friday, get salad stuff for me. He doesn't want salad.
Okay, I couldn't quite hear. So maybe if you could type your comment or your question. I don't know. Did you catch that, Sharon? I couldn't quite hear.
No.
Okay.
I couldn't hear it either.
Okay. I see. It's not just me. I see other people shaking their heads. Well, we're coming up on 5:30. So do you have some amazing inspirational words of wisdom to close with, Sharon, or am I going to have to come up with it on my own?
Oh, God. Now the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Just live each day and try something new every day. And don't stay home and feel sorry for yourself. That's the worst thing you can do. Get out there and live life. And we've all done some crazy things since our diagnosis. Maybe because of having Parkinson's, I'm doing things I never thought I would do. Like Perry said, doing the rock garden, the rock wall, and what am I doing in a boxing class with 10 men, and I'm the only woman? Hello. Just go there and have fun. Enjoy life in whatever way you can.
I think you nailed it. What do you think, everyone? Is that good advice? Should we thumbs up, wave hands? Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Sharon, to tell us a little bit about your journey and your what inspires you. And you heard it here. I think we have a former writer, Patricia, who said she's gonna, maybe start expressing some of her thoughts, and was recently diagnosed. So we'd love to hear, kind of your musings, Patricia. So you'll have to keep us in the loop. And sorry, you were cut off. Go ahead, Sharon.
I said, maybe you need to interview Patricia. It'd be great to hear somebody who's newly diagnosed, who's moving forward.
Absolutely. I think so too. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for those of you who chimed in. Again, Sharon's blog is www.twitchywoman.com, just like the song. That's the Eagles, right?
It was Witchy Woman.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the Eagles.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
see, I already changed the lyrics in my head because yours is better.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good timing. My phone didn't ring the
Yeah,
whole hour.
right. Saved by the bell. So thank you everyone for joining us for our little happy hour get together. And we hope that we do this every month. So we hope to see you, if you liked what we talked about, if you'd like to chime in, yourself more next time, we'd love to hear you. We'd love to have you. Thank you so much to everyone and have a great evening.